right, Luca Nation. I have a topic that's going to breach the era where Cage collected, the 80s, and today's era, the 2000s and 2020s.
You're the best, man. Let the audience know you're the best. You come on, you
You
say, "Hey,
think
what are we
so?
going to talk about?" You got a topic, and I'm like, "Yeah, let's talk about the weather."
I've won.
Because I thought you had no topic, and I said talk about the weather, and you laugh at me because you thought that I was just making a joke. But I actually did want to talk about the weather here in episode will be 915 of of the show, because
Yes.
the weather is wreaking havoc on sports. You know, Detroit cannot get back to Detroit because there's icing of the planes. I think where are they in Dallas? I think so. Tonight's Detroit Wizards game is postponed. The NBA is postponing games, and I don't think the Pelicans can fly into Dallas to hit their game. Yeah, there's
Wait,
like
what?
icing. Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Go take a look right now as we're recording this. Take a look at any of your
The
sports.
Wizards
Shams,
Pistons game
Wizards,
is
Pistons
postponed.
postponed because Detroit can't get back home. They can't get out of the airport. Yeah.
Because of what reason?
They're saying like icing of the planes and stuff. I mean,
In
it's like,
Texas?
no, I think getting back to to Dallas. I mean getting back to Detroit. Excuse me, Dallas. I think what they're saying is that no, let's say Pistons may not be able to fly out of Dallas Thursday because of icing conditions and uncertainty about the Pelicans' ability to fly into Dallas. So yeah, Dallas.
That is actually my topic. Texas shuts down whenever. I mean, remember
That's
like,
your
the power
topic.
grid couldn't hit.
Dallas ice storm has left Detroit unable to fly home. Hell yeah, crazy.
So
I assumed it was.
I
'cause
was
they couldn't get
watching
into
the
Detroit.
Mavs Suns game. It was maybe like a week ago, and Luca twisted his ankle, went out in like the fourth minute, and
They still won.
Spencer Dinwiddie went absolutely off. And I once had a famous take where it was, LeBron doesn't make his teammates better, right? And I'm sitting here, and I've been watching Luca for a while. And by the way, guys, when I say I have a take, it's not a take to stir up people's emotions and piss some people off and some people agree. A take is something I've watched for a long time. I share it on the show and curious to see if you guys feel the same way. And the more I watch Luca, the more I feel that he is an incredible talent, someone who's going to break a lot of single individual records the way that we count stats today. He'll be the first player who records 40 points, 20 assists, and 10 rebounds in a game. You'll start seeing that. But the more I watch him, the more I feel like he's going to end his career more like a Griffey than like a LeBron. So one thing is he was compared to LeBron right off the get. But what we don't realize is by year 3, LeBron was basically leading this Cavs team to the finals on his own.
Yep.
Luka's not nearly as athletic as LeBron. I don't think that his body's going to last in the league for 20 years. Yet his prices are extremely, extremely expensive. And I'm curious if you're watching the Luka market at all, if you're thinking about the Luka market at all, going through what happened with Griffey, he was sort of the poster child of that late 80s, early 90s era. But what that actually meant was a tremendous amount of card printing. And you see the exact same thing here with Luka. So what do you have? You have Griffey, a likable personality, someone that captivated the game, that could almost do no wrong, that was beloved by fans, came in and just, his game was so silky and beautiful. And his card prices, he still has a huge collector base. And I think Luka will have a huge collector base. But Griffey never won a championship. Griffey isn't one of the top 10 of all time. But yet when he was playing, he was prognosticated to do all those things. Any thoughts on that at all?
I love it. I think it's great because here you are. You're. It's funny. You're saying who he might be more like Griffey. I was going to say, oh, maybe Charles Barkley. Like maybe a guy who didn't really win. Maybe somebody who at the end of his career maybe grabs one. You know what I mean? And grabs a championship at the end of the career, like Karl Malone. Like maybe get. But Griffey's actually a much better comparison because of, you're right, the even though it's a different sport, the production numbers. And I think you can even go further with your take and compare the Griffey 89 Upper Deck to the Luka Prism. Maybe the Luka Prism,
That's the card I was thinking. And then you have obviously the parallels and maybe
the silver and stuff. But
the Topps Tiffany might be like the blue color match. I don't know how you're going to equate them.
Sure. 100%. I think it's a great comparison, and I think that card was cool, but then it was basically worthless for a long time. Except now the high grade ones are sought after by people like me, who 20 years later are chasing after their the card that was iconic to them, the card that spoke about collecting, and that Luca Prism is going to be that. I think from a card standpoint, I think you're 100% right. There are Griffey cards that sell for plenty. I mean, Golden's got a really nice, the Star Rubies out of 50, or a sliding that's in their auction coming up next week.
Which could be equated to like maybe a gold Kaboom Luca.
Exactly. There are going to be cards of his that are collectible, whether he is a winner or not, because, listen, Luca, you're right, he's going to break a lot of records. If he doesn't win championships, he's going to have that Trout. He's going to have that Griffey kind of comparison. But I think he remains relevant because he's sort of the poster child for this basketball boom here, the card printing and whatnot. So you'd like to have hoped maybe Zion would have, would have held some of that down, but the dude doesn't play.
So another team I've been watching is the Pelicans. So I actually thought that the Pelicans, they were on an 8-game losing streak yesterday at the Nuggets. The Nuggets had a pretty emotional game, Embiid versus Jokic. Flying home, I thought that was a game the Pelicans could win. And they were leading pretty big at the half. The Nuggets went on a late game run. And I'm watching this team. And I watched the Pelicans all year. I love this team. I love Trey Murphy. I love Herb Jones. I think they're demoralized. And I think they're demoralized with his in and out of the lineup. They've battled so many injuries top to bottom. Obviously, Brandon Ingram is out. I'm worried that Zion is going to be Zion, but he's going to have a short career where he's in and out of the lineup like he's been this season for the rest of his career. And I don't see anything changing with Zion. So two guys, why I was coming into, because if we talk about cards, there's a tremendous amount of money. So we see Josh Allen, the sell-off that's happening. Burrow probably going to – but we haven't seen that same sell-off in modern basketball. I think part of the reason is in football you sort of know, okay, you lost the AFC Championship game, that's when you sell off, right? But basketball, you don't have that. My worry with Luka and Zion – Luka, I already brought up the worry, but with Zion is I actually am watching him become slowly less cardboard relevant because of this momentum on, momentum off, and I don't think anything's going to change for the rest of his career.
Well, I mean, the difference is I think of Zion, and I'm thinking like, I love what you're saying about his team, because last year he was out, but they knew he was out, and they kind of gelled together without him.
Correct.
And played really well as a team. And you thought, wow, how great could this team be when they got him back? They had an identity going into the playoff run last year. Their identity was, we're awesome. Without him, we could be so much better with him, sure, but they weren't like, all right, well, we're not going to build up some chemistry. We're not going to do this because he's just coming back next week. And you're right, it's like fits and starts, right? It's he's back, he's not back, he's back. Are we waiting for him? What's the lineup going to be? I like that. As far as cardboard relevant, I mean, you would be 100% right if your crystal ball is accurate, and this is what we're going to get from Zion forever. I think there are enough people who still believe that he could put it all together, and if he does for a couple of seasons in a row, like think of Kawhi.
Thank you for leading me, by the way, with this.
Go ahead, please.
I believe I see things just slightly before other people see it. Now, I don't think that necessarily equates to money, but like think about this with Mahomes.
How many fingers am I holding up behind my hand?
2.
Look at this, guys. He proved it.
It's true. It's true. My sister said this to me before as well. Like, I was into crypto and Bitcoin in 2013, 14. Now, seeing something coming doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to profit off of it. Those are two separate discussions because you also need to have the discipline to stay consistent. And I think Cage a few weeks ago said, it's actually on your third cycle where you can make money because – for a variety of reasons.
The first one, you take your lumps. The second one, you might luck into something. But the third one, you've seen enough of this where it's like, all right, I now recognize, here's the trend. Here's what I missed the first 2 times around. Yeah.
And this is actually where I probably got in my own way in the previous two times where I got maybe chased or, overextended, whatever the reason is. So I saw Mahomes as like everyone's chasing the next thing. I mean, before the season started, I said, why is everyone chasing the next GOAT? Here he is right in front of you. And I think he had a subpar season. won the MVP as in the Super Bowl, and it feels like, would you say he's played at 100%? I think he's playing closer to 80%,
Yeah, if that. Yeah.
if that. And you watch all the Raider games, so I think we haven't seen the sell-off on Zion. I think we haven't seen the cardboard irrelevance, but it's coming. And I think why it's coming is this start-stop is very frustrating for any type of investor collector, right? Specifically investors. And why I think there will still be an exit point because I still don't think we've seen Zion in the playoffs. I think we will see this amazing dunking, scoring ability, one playoff run. But after that, I would be worried if I was a Zion holder. Not because he's not going to be great, because I think he's going to be perpetually in and out of the lineup with these small 2-week, 2-month nagging injuries. And you know how easy it is to lose cardboard relevance. I've noticed that it causes a lack of confidence, regardless if it's a knee injury that you're out for a year or a hamstring where you're out for a month.
Well, it's tough to build, right? It's tough to build momentum, right? It's tough to build on that. And, my hope is, and I don't root for anybody to get injured or be horrible. My hope is that, he figures it out. He finds a way to stay healthy. Maybe I don't know if it's losing a lot of weight. I don't know what the story is, but
We as investors in this hobby or collectors, we're not rooting. We have an emotional connection, but are also we have success based on how well we deal with reality, like true reality, not the smoke and mirrors of reality, but true reality. And I think you'd be foolish to the two topics I discussed. I'd be curious to what you guys hear, because a lot of people have millions of dollars in cards in Luka, hundreds of thousands of dollars cards in Zion. And these are two guys that both are concerning me for different reasons.
I hear you. And in a superstar league, right? Only one person's winning the championship.
Only
So,
one person's winning the
each year.
championship.
That's what we talked about with the AFC, right? You can invest in any one of these quarterbacks. They still got to get through Mahomes. They still got to get through, Mahomes and Burrow now, and it's difficult. And, people who put their money in Mac Jones, people put their money in Zach Wilson. Difficult.
What do you make of Sean Payton to the Broncos? Any thoughts? Anything?
I like it, but I don't want to go off NBA yet. So just give me
Okay.
30 seconds on what I saw in the games last night.
Okay.
Sometimes a piece that doesn't sound like a big deal, I think can be a big deal. And I'm talking about a guy who, maybe in jest, Shaquille O'Neal didn't even know who he was. I'm talking about Rui Hachimura. Now, I'm not telling you guys to run out and grab the Rui cards, okay? We've all been through that. I was at Bleecker trading for the trade night, and they have their like $10 and $15 bin, and it's just loaded with Rui cards. Just a ton of like PSA 9 mosaics and like all kinds of like Rui. Because everybody was grading everything, myself included. My son has a Rui jersey, but of course he's not on that team anymore. Big fan. The market was there, right? Asian market would be into him, right? He's he's somebody who you
Does
can
it
get
blow
behind.
your mind if you see like a Rui base PSA 10? That's like $5.
No, I mean that's what I think it's worth. But here's what's funny. He was a role player, bench player on Washington. I believe the Lakers last night found their starting five, and he is in it. Okay? And he played very, very well. And he is a nice burst of youthful energy where that team didn't have it. There was a play in the fourth quarter where the Knicks were making a run to try to tie it up. LeBron grabbed a rebound, and normally they would very slowly with their walkers, him and Anthony Davis limp up, into the half court, set up their offense. Somebody would set a screen for LeBron, and with, a half a second left on the shot clock, he would either get fouled or instead LeBron looks up and there's Rui darting to the basket, and he throws like a full court quarterback pass for a dunk. It's the kind of stuff that you didn't. Dude had 19 and 9 last night, in like 28 minutes or something, and played above the rim, was getting rebounds, and I think they've got a good starting lineup. Remember, it was against the Knicks. I live in New York. I'm not a Knicks fan anymore. I was when Patrick Ewing was there and they were good. I haven't rooted for the Knicks in a long time, and the reason for it is because no matter what, the visiting team's superstar that comes in is always the better player than what the Knicks have. For the last couple of decades, the Knicks don't have the star. Julius Randle and Brunson are not matching the star power of a LeBron who came in last night and at 38 years old was the best player on the court. So again, it's against the Knicks, but the Knicks are a team that people are on the upswing, and the Lakers are just. But the Lakers beat them. They held them off. They, held off the runs. They had to go to overtime. They shouldn't have. LeBron hit a dagger three, and they were up by 6 with like a minute left, and the Knicks made a comeback, but they still beat them. And I think Rui played a Westbrook off the bench, jawing at Gary V on the sidelines. I don't know if you saw that. They were getting into a little verbal sparring. Thomas Bryant playing well. A nice big body in there. Davis doing what he needs to do. You don't expect too much out of them. The team they looked like they found their 5. And that's a guy who was like nothing for Washington. So
It looks like they found a 5 that could become the 5, right? Because for most of the season, the Lakers have looked inept.
correct.
Like, okay, I could see something here.
Well, Patrick Beverley can now take pictures with his camera from the sidelines and come in on the second unit. And Lonnie Walker is not the guy they thought he was. Max Christie, the rookie, could turn into something, but he's not it now. They got rid of Nunn, who we thought was going to be that spot-up shooter and just never turned into what they thought it was going to be. And I think they, that Laker team with LeBron doing what he's doing, I think they found that. Does that mean they're winning a championship? No. The interesting part of it and what made me think of this was you're talking about Luka, and is it really crazy to say Luka's one move, one piece away from being a guy who can win a championship?
Yeah, and so I thought about this because we always try to comp styles to see what players need, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, who does Luka play like? LeBron. Well, okay, that's not really fair because LeBron was a high flyer from the get.
Yep.
It could be argued LeBron in the second, third season is actually a better player than he is now. He was so good defensively. He was unstoppable getting to the rim. Okay, you can't compare him to LeBron. I heard those from. Okay, so okay? Well, I remember an MVP named James Harden. Well, he got one piece. He got a few pieces, and that team still couldn't beat a team that played full team ball in the Warriors. Now, people say it was one hamstring injury away from Chris Paul from getting to the finals, maybe, but we saw Harden, who it didn't work, and I think Luka's the closest comp to MVP Harden with maybe a bit more clutch factor, if you would use that word, but we've seen it not work. And I don't think that Luka's one piece away. I actually think that when that one piece comes and we realize that he isn't one piece away is when a sell-off happens, not in his $1 million cards, but in those $10,000 cards that become $2,000 cards, because sort of the writing's on the wall that he's not going to be a 5-time MVP and a 3-time champion.
All right,
It's
okay.
more likely he's going to be a 1-time MVP, a no-time champion, and a top 25 greatest player of all time.
Right, and so maybe if he does get paired up with somebody, it's could win one championship and not the ones that people are. Okay, I understand.
I don't know
I
who
get
to
it.
pair with him. There's no blueprint to who you pair because you brought in this other ball handler in Chris Paul. That didn't get the job done in Houston. You clearly see Spencer Dinwiddie, Tim Hardaway, and Luka can't play together because Luka holds the ball 20 seconds of the shot clock. Dinwiddie, who's a momentum scorer, can't get into his groove.
Right. I understand what you're saying. I'm wondering it, if you pair him up with a big man and a sharpshooter, like maybe even him leaving. I mean, that's never a good thing, but
He'll never leave. Cuban's really good about kind of protecting you. You see, there's never any negative press going out about Luka. Like there was a mural that said something, and Cuban was like, "Hey, that's disrespectful." Cuban's always protected his superstars. I think almost protecting his superstars, selling jerseys, filling out the arena is more important than winning championships.
okay, all right. So we move on. What do I think about Sean Payton in Denver? I think it's a genius move for him. It reminds me of a couple of moves that Bill Parcells would make. Parcells was the coach of the Giants when they won the Super Bowl. He also coached Dallas, and he coached the Jets for a little while. He would come in after his Giants run. He came into a Dallas team that was beaten up. He came into a Jets team that had won, I think, one game the year before it. And the expectations were so low that if he came in and won a few games, it's like, wow, look at the genius coach that we brought in. He turned this whole thing around. So I think it's smart to go to some place like that the expectations and, the floor is already, the bar is so low, they say, right? That, you don't really have to succeed so much. As far as the team goes, look, I talked about how Tom Brady could go to the NFC, and the reason why I said that was because I think it's the easiest path to a championship, right? He's now in a division with Patrick Mahomes, right? That's the same. Denver's in the same division as Patrick Mahomes. I don't know who the Raiders are going to get at quarterback, but who knows who that's going to be? Whether it's going to be through the draft, whether they're going to trade up and get a Bryce Young, or if they're going to trade for a Lamar Jackson, but you got to figure the
Justin Fields,
Raiders,
right?
if they could do that with Chicago and trade their pick but you got to figure the Raiders with their offensive weapons, hopefully they shore up their defense. They're a team that is a good team, and you still have Justin Herbert, which we don't know exactly what he is, but he doesn't suck. He might not be Mahomes, but he doesn't suck. That is a tough division. And then as you expand out into the AFC where Denver plays, the rest of the AFC is a juggernaut too. You still have Mr. Burrow there. You have the up and coming Trevor Lawrence Jaguars. You still have Tennessee. That's a nightmare to deal with every year. With Derrick Henry and their run game. So as far as that goes, if I were a coach, I'd be looking to come into the NFC. You know what I mean? Like I'd be looking to grab an NFC job because there is not, this real, tough gauntlet that
It's
you
a
got to run
juggernaut.
through, right?
It's a juggernaut. It's parity. You expect to see a lot of, I mean, we said it all year in the Western Conference of the NBA. There's a lot of parity. So
Yeah.
you said the AFC is a juggernaut all year.
They have the best young quarterbacks. It's tough to invest there. If I were looking at a quarterback to invest in now, I'd be looking at Jared Goff's cards. Because I think
He had a good year, man.
he was very close to like Pro Bowl year, Pro Bowl numbers, and here's a guy who has weapons. The run game weapons. They added Jamison Williams, who is going to fly under the radar and be, I'm telling you guys, going to be talked about with the top receivers, those guys who can spread the field out. He's somebody who was the best receiver in the country and got hurt and fell to them. And you pair that up with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who a lot of people who listen to this still don't know, even though I mentioned him a million times.
Yeah.
So I forget the number. If it was like 196 catches that Justin Jefferson had, you can look it up. Justin Jefferson's first 2 years, he set a record for the most amount of catches. And you know what's amazing about it? Whatever the number is, I think it might be 196 most receptions in the first 2 years. League record that Justin Jefferson just set. Problem is he doesn't hold it by himself because in the same 2 years, Amon-Ra Brown had exactly the same amount of catches as Justin Jefferson.
196.
I said 196. Boom, 196. Michael Thomas had 196. He did it in 31 games, not 33 like the other two. But 196 catches. Justin Jefferson and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Different kind of receiver, right? Different kind of receiver. Amon-Ra did it with almost 30 less targets. He also has 1,000 less receiving yards. So it's a little bit of a different story. But real weapons. Detroit.
Amon-Ra St. Brown has 196. 90 last year and 106 this year.
I mean, under the radar, 196, same amount as Justin Jefferson, record for first 2 years in the league. So I'd look at that. Like, obviously, Detroit has their coach, but that would be where I'm investing because I think they have an easier path going through, right? I think their division's a little bit lighter. I think, that's the kind of quarterback I'd be looking at. They remind me of...
You know how important belief is. Last year, they finally broke that belief into like, wait, we are a good team. We're not the Lions anymore. We saw, my banana hat play of the week was the Lions, like 6 out of 16 weeks the year before. I was wrong. I was wrong on the timing, right on the team. Last year, it looks like they turned a corner and they believe.
And look at it. Brady just retired. He's not going to the Niners, right? I don't know where Aaron Rodgers is going to be. For all I know, he could be in the Jets. That's what a lot of people are saying. I don't know if that happens, but if it does, that's another NFC quarterback that's out, right? What do you got? Dak Prescott left? That ain't scaring anybody. Who's going to be the Niners QB? I don't know. Brock Purdy? I mean, there's the Detroit team reminds me of the Jacksonville team. Up and coming, weapons, good quarterback play. The only problem is Trevor Lawrence has to get past all of the names that we just mentioned. Goff doesn't have to get past anyone. So it's an interesting little thing as far as like, investing and, what you wind up doing. I guess Jalen Hurts would be a beneficiary of that as well. A weak NFC. We will see.
What do you think of Brady's retirement? Unfiltered, uncaged, just the truth, raw opinion.
Honestly, I mean, it looked very heartfelt. Right? He looked emotional. It looked great. I was glad at how he said, we're good. Luca Nation is good. I was happy to hear him say that. But no, in the real announcement, honestly, it's a shame because one of the favorite things that I read as a child and has stuck with me the entire time of life is The Boy Who Cried Wolf. I loved reading it. I loved the story behind it. And I was never someone who was going to cry wolf on anybody. So that people would know that if I was asking for help, you know I needed it, right? If I was saying something, you know I meant it, right? And I'll stick to my guns. Whether my take is wrong in your eyes or not, I'm not crying wolf, right? I love that story. And unfortunately, Mr. Brady has now retired twice in a calendar year. Today being the second time. He has done this already. He has already retired. He retired last year.
Do you think he sees it like that, Cage? Because I don't think he sees last year's retirement as his retirement.
It was the same thing. He retired. He wrote a whole heartfelt note. It was just as emotional. It was like a whole
How come
big
you
thing.
never listened to me? You know what happened. I live down here in Miami.
Yes, you were doing stuff with his wife. I remember.
Antonio Brown was. I don't do that kind of stuff. I'm always been bros before hoes. Always. Like if you do that to your buddy, I mean that ain't right. And after all the kind words,
That's just
Brady
a
said
saying.
about
He
Luka
doesn't
Nation-
believe that. It's a saying. He's repeating a saying.
Well, I mean, all the nice things that Brady said about Luka Nation were good, and then to go, no way I would do that. No, that's not in my values. But what I heard was she leaked it to a friend, to the media, whatever. It got out, and then he had to do damage control, and he couldn't go against her. And I imagine this divorce was already brewing, so it couldn't be like, no, this is wrong, because it would have come back and been like, this your wife betrayed you, so he had to go with it.
I mean, possible. I just think he retired, and then
Unretired.
it didn't work out, and he unretired 40 days later.
What
So
didn't
you
work
asked for
out
me
in the-
unfiltered, right? What I think is, especially this time around, he's not under contract, but I don't know what's in his contract, right? I don't know whether or not there is some right of first refusal, some matching, I don't know what it is. I have no idea what's in it, and I also haven't read the NFL's anti-tampering, rules and regulations just because I don't want to read them. But it seems to me that the cleanest way for any player, not just Tom Brady, but for any player who's no longer under contract with the team, to be able to talk to whoever they want about whatever they want without the cloud over their head of tampering that was there last year, that people wanted to talk to him, oh, there's tampering, remember? And people got, it was a whole big thing with the NFL. But if he came out and made it clear to everyone, this time I mean it. I know I cried wolf last time. There was no wolf. There's a wolf this time. I'm retired. I promise. Well, then if he starts talking to the 49ers or he starts talking to whoever it is, he's just a retired dude talking to them. The owners can talk to him. It's not tampering. The NFL on Fox can talk to him. They offered him a contract. He can have whatever conversations he wants, and everybody can talk to him without fear of the NFL, with a sideways eye, because he's retired. Everyone knows he's retired.
Okay, so what you're saying is, you know how the articles come out like, oh, Miami Dolphins are no longer pursuing Brady.
Yeah.
Are you saying that potentially in his contract, because he's still an active player, that would be considered tampering?
I don't think so, because I think his contract was a one-year deal, and now that he's no longer playing, I think the contract is done, and I don't think they can put anything in the contract that prevents him from doing it. That said, since I don't know, the cleanest thing would be he's done. He's retired. He no longer has any affiliation with the Tampa Bay team or any team. It makes it very clean. Like, if I am the New York Jets now, I can call him and say, hey, you're retired. Any way we can talk you out of it? Without any fear of any type of repercussion, or you're not pissing off the Tampa Bay Bucks because he's not one of their guys. Even if it's an unwritten rule. Dude, retired. We just happen to lure him back in with a promise of a whole boatload of money and get to wear a green uniform.
Maybe I'm seeing this through rosy colored glasses. The TB12 book, like when he came out with the TB12 method, was a book that actually changed my life. It's a very practical guide to like eating. I really respect greatness in Tom Brady, so maybe I'm seeing this through rosy colored eyes. But I thought he already did those calls, and I thought his retirement was that no one wanted him anymore.
That's not exactly rosy colored eyes, especially not for him.
It made me a little sad.
So
Because I
then
thought
it's
he had a
glassy eyes or teary eyes.
I think he had a pretty good year.
He did have a good year. Listen, here's the
With
thing, right? And
Todd Bowles, who's maybe the worst coach in the history of coaching.
not to be like, oh wow, it's hot. Maybe he's really retired. Like maybe he is, and maybe it's not because no one wanted him. Maybe because the grind of this year was something he does not want to go through again. You know what I mean? And maybe that's possibly what it is. And look, it's funny. You talked about Zion, and look, Mike Evans is not exactly a picture of consistency. You know, the weapons that he's had, Chris Godwin, I mean, that dude is like, he just falls apart. He's hurt more often than he's not hurt. And, he hasn't had consistency from the coaching perspective, you name it. He won a championship there. You can't really ask him for too much more than that, but, he played okay. At the end of the year, some of the passes, that playoff game, he was throwing a ball into the ground. It was very weird. I mean, maybe that's on the receivers. Maybe it's on him.
He always threw balls into the ground, though. That's how he doesn't get a lot of interceptions.
Maybe. It's very possible he was just done. You know what I mean? But here's the fun part, right? There are a lot of quarterbacks who have retired. A lot of quarterbacks who have retired multiple times. I mean, Brett Favre did it. You know what I mean? There have been plenty of QBs who retired and came back. And who knows? Maybe right now he wants to retire. Maybe right now he wants to be done. And maybe he goes and plays some golf. Maybe he plays a month worth of whatever it is. Maybe he hangs out with Gronk. Maybe he goes and hangs out with Julian Edelman. And then in April or May or June, he's bored as all get out and he comes back. There'd be nothing wrong with that.
Do you see him as a commentator like on Fox?
No.
You know that he has a huge
Yeah.
deal with them. I think one of the big things that we
it.
never discuss as athletes, I saw Kobe talk about this when he retired. It's like, what's the after, right? If for 25 years you are this role, like you know the schedule of your year, you know how to prepare, you know what your purpose is, right? Then like that, it's over. I think that's very hard. Like I don't think he'd want to relive this year either. A retirement, a divorce, like who wants to relive that? Not a very good season, even by his standards. They made the, and I think part of him is like, okay, I know probably time to hang it up. It was probably time to hang it up after the Super Bowl. But what do I do? We say, okay, sit at home and be with the kids. But I think that's easy to say. But from what people who've done that have said, it gets very boring and very depressing.
Yeah. I mean, listen, this is a fun topic. Today, I've got to be in the minority. I'm sure everybody, watched the message and was like, he's done. This time, it's for real. But
you have a little sadness behind those eyes. Kunu, it looks like you have a little sadness behind those eyes.
I mean, listen, I think he was sad the last time around too. I've seen enough of these people, try to leave the game for whatever the reason is. Even Michael Jordan did it in his prime and try to play baseball. He was doing it for the right reason. Obviously, this was something he wanted to do. But when you're one of the greats, if not the best, I'll know in mid-June when the Raiders or the Titans or the Dolphins or the Patriots or the Commanders or Sean Payton's Broncos, after he's there and realizes Russ is not the guy and we're going to trade him for something, or whatever the story is, when they desperately need a free agent quarterback after whiffing in free agency. Because who's left? You got Rodgers and Lamar. I just named a bunch of teams that are going to need a quarterback, right? Or one of those guys strikes out in the draft, or there's an injury that hits in preseason or whatever it is, and it provides the perfect opportunity for Tom Brady to slide in at that point in time and make another run and pad his stats and maybe have a chance to win number 8. When that happens, and he's not oceanside with the wind blowing and nothing pulling him back to the game, then I'll believe it. I know that makes me an asshole.
And I just had a thought because do you remember when the whole Deflategate thing was happening? And it looked like he was, I mean, obviously these things weigh on people, but different people handle stress differently. Some people don't even care. I think that time was another difficult time in his life where I think he's someone, the love languages we talk about them. I think he's someone that loves to be admired. Some people love to be heels. Like, honestly, they're like, I want to be hated. He wants to be admired. And I think what he realized over the last year is how quick the whole narrative changed from this team just won a Super Bowl. He's great. Belichick should have never left him to like, he should have hung it up. He ruined his
Right.
marriage.
He
For
should
the,
go back and join up with Belichick because he can't win without him. The two of them should
like
team
that,
back
it
up. Yeah.
flipped 180. And I think if we follow that narrative, if you went to any team right now, it would be like, wait, you're joining the 49ers? The narrative wouldn't be the same as, like you mentioned, if he comes back, it's like he's the savior.
Yep.
And now he's – why I brought up Brady is, and I'll ask you, does this concern you? I'm worried that – and I saw it today when I was selling like my lower-end Brady cards. Does it worry you that the hobby's full of flippers? Whereas most of the people that are buying right now, in my experience, I could be wrong, in the areas I play in, are just looking to buy it to resell. Now, I don't want to take this from a good or bad, more of a strength of the hobby. Does someone, even who's trying to buy a great, like Tom Brady, the only reason they're doing that on retirement is to go to a show this weekend and sell it for 15, 20, 25% more.
Do I think there's a problem with that?
Does that speak to the strength or weakness of the hobby? What I mean by
No.
that is,
It speaks to the different faces of the hobby. I don't think it makes it weak or strong. I think if I have to pick one of the two, it leans towards strength because, yeah, I mean, look, the collector base is always going to be there. Always going to be there. There's always going to be people who buy cards of players they like, players they grew up loving, building sets, you name it. That has not gone away.
has it grown, stayed the same, or gone down since 2015?
I think
Collector.
the collectors have grown also, I believe.
And
And I think a lot of collectors who collected before have come back in. The flipping side has grown tremendously. Tremendously. And
Just to give you guys context in case we're good. I posted like 25, 30 cards on my story. Brady, the day of retirement. I got a lot of interest, but no one like, I need that Brady card. It was all like, hey, would you be willing to sell these for 80%? I have a show this weekend that I think I could move them, which is fine, just to give you guys context.
I mean, so what's funny about that is I don't know when you bought the cards, but maybe you bought those cards 4 years ago. Maybe you bought them during Deflategate. Maybe you've owned them for a while and you're into them at a good price. You're not going to a show to get 90% of recent comps.
Yep.
You can sit in your living room, sell at 80% of comps or 75% of comps, still make plenty of money on it, also have less of a headache, not have to list them, you name it, sell them to somebody else who's now going to make a little money for the service of they're going to the show. They're going to actually sell them in pieces instead of in one big swoop.
I got them on weekly. These were my first purchases when we started doing content for PWCC, when I was telling you guys that there's a flood of inventory of Brady cards. You remember this?
Yeah.
So I bought basic Topps Chrome bases, PSA 9s for like $15, a bunch of them.
All right.
Liquidation sale, 4 Mon Mills. Pay those bills. That's what these were.
I mean, but so you see how that works, right? I mean, the flippers who are going to leave are the flippers who can't make that 10% or 15% anymore. Flippers who are going to leave are the ones who...
The ratio of flippers to collectors, though, even in the goats of the goats, to me is striking that it's predominantly sneaker culture, mug life culture, trash talk culture, NFT culture, flipping. It's like, hey, can I get this here and sell it for 20% more on it this weekend? I think the ratio is 90-10, where it used to be 80-20.
Okay. All right. I mean, it's fair. You know, are you fearful that we're going to lose those flippers? Because doesn't that put the ratio back where it is? And if we lose those flippers, does that hurt prices?
That there's a greater fool theory, right? So, like, flippers typically wait for these kind of liquidation events, like Brady retiring, Luka going for 60 points, someone winning MVP, whatever, right? I'm fearful that there are no forever homes, or there's very few forever homes, especially not for the influx of supply of all these cards.
Okay, that's fair.
At the market.
Do the cards you just showed
theory of like hot potato, who's going to be stuck holding the last bag?
Is that card supposed to have a forever home? A $15 11th year Topps Chrome card? I mean, maybe that's the question we start with. Like, is that card
Have they
supposed
ever
to
had
even,
forever homes?
I mean, that card, is it supposed to have a forever home even in a slab?
I guess they used to have forever. I don't want to call it forever display. I'll call them forever cages basement. Where
Yeah, I have some of those
they're
in my
just
basement.
there. They're
Yeah.
just. I don't even know that I have that card anymore. Kind of. I
Yes.
don't know if it's not a card like a Gaudy who you're like. I
It's
know
part of
that
the right sizing, right? I mean, it's part of the right sizing of it.
it's
Eventually,
not
the
trim.
flippers,
I didn't trim those cards.
of the hobby, the flippers. Maybe there will come a time in the next year or 2 or 4 or 6 months or whatever it is where certain cards can't be flipped. And whether it's the greater fool theory, or it's because people have left, or it's because people are getting more discerning. Maybe there's not another dollar to squeeze out of another Brady card. Maybe the flipping doesn't happen on guys, except for maybe the flipping becomes something that happens where people are playing. You know what I mean? And it's less a greater fool. It's like, okay, I was able to flip Scotty Barnes last year. I can't do it right now because he's not doing so much. But guess what? If next week he comes out and drops 43 games in a row, boom, the people who have him, they pull him out, they sell him to somebody else. Now, if your question is, well, that person's going to get stuck with it unless and until Scotty Barnes drops 50 next season, well, is that really sustainable? That's a very good question.
That I think you worded it perfectly. Like, how many times? Like, even just like looking at the Luca Prism base PSA 10, like that's eventually just going to be a $50 card, a
You
$10
think?
card, a $25 card. No one wants that card.
It's funny because the Griffey Jr. Upper Deck rookie card was like $75 raw in 1989.
Okay.
And then it was like $1. It was like, $5. It's like nothing. And now it's come back because of the high grade stuff and the whole deal, right? So,
Cage. Oh, interesting. It came back. So I wonder what. In 20 years, we'll grade the slab. It'll be a slab on top of the slab.
there'll have to be something. It'll have to be, maybe it's Mike, maybe it's Mike Baker.
The clearest slabs.
Maybe it's the silver, the gold, and the black diamond.
Yeah. No, it's just interesting because in what piqued this whole thought was I saw someone selling a Zion Prism Base PSA 10. I'm gonna take a guess how much that card is. It's PSA 10.
Zion Prism Base PSA 10, $125.
Yeah, it was actually 100. I remember buying them raw before the run up, where they started at 50, and someone would throw like an emergent in. They actually got up to $200 raw. Now
They were a PSA 10 of those it was $1,000. I remember that.
Now it's 100, and we're like, well, this lost 90%. My worry is as I sell and buy and go to shows and we group cards together, but the reality is there are these very small percentage of forever home cards, the cards that are truly sought by collectors, and then all of this other stuff that we think has sort of hit a floor, but I actually think it's going to hit and keep going.
Who do you think is going into the basement?
I do. I really do. Because nobody wants them. There's no demand for them other than if I could buy it and sell it at a later date.
Okay, so let's just accept what you're saying is true, because it's usually a good way to take, your conclusion and test it, right? Let's assume the facts that you're saying as if they're true. Okay.
Yes.
So there's a lot of these things. The only people who want them are flippers. What if I were to tell you that flippers are here for good, and that this hobby is always going to have enough flippers in it to continuously move cards in and out of stores, in and out of shows. And part of why you feel the way you do about maybe your own inventory is because you're looking at IG, you're looking at your own collection, you're kind of in your own little, corner of the hobby now, where the only thing you can do is put your stuff out into the exchangeogram, put it on the line, and hope that one of these flippers that we all hate so much reaches out to you and takes them off your hands and does the flipping for you.
I wanted to be clear, I don't hate them. And I don't think that the tone and tenor of this episode is hate flippers.
Good. But think about that. What if I were to tell you that there's always going to be a flipper there? There's always going to be somebody there.
There is always going to be flippers, but flippers are short-sighted in that they'll chase the next shiny new toy. So they're going to chase Zion of 2027.
Okay. Partly. They might chase Zion when Zion's having that good week, and maybe you still have some of those Zions you graded, and those flippers will be somebody who they could reach out to you, or you could reach out to
Right.
in that week and say, "Here you go, I got it. I know you're going to a show, and
Right.
you
So
know,
Zion
here,
has a
give me
good
some
week.
money."
The flipper comes to me and is like, "Hey, I remember you were selling these Zion. Can I get them off you?" But they're not getting them to put them away and like, I'm a believer now, Zion. They're getting them because they're going to a show in New Orleans and they want inventory for the show.
And what are they doing with the inventory? They're not just showing it off
They're
and
selling
holding it there. And who are they selling it to? So I believe
They better hope that they can get a lot of kids.
No, well, I
with their parents'
believe,
money into the hobby.
and
But I think eventually they're not going to be able to sell to anybody else.
So I think what's funny about it is it's symbiotic, right? It's an ecosystem. Think of the hobby as
I
that
agree.
ecosystem, right? And I get the benefit of learning from
Collectors
Sharon.
are Apex
From-
Predator.
Well, retail collectors, retail buyers, right? Actual homes, your forever homes that's the end game, right? So think about it like the food cycle. Think about it however you want. Think about the hobby as this ecosystem, right? And yeah, there's apex predators. There's all kinds of fun stuff in there. Maybe Jeff Wilson's the apex predator. I don't know. But maybe there's apex predators out there, right? I mean, there's, right? So, but think about it. What Sharon would tell you, what Black Jada Wolf would tell you, and check out the episode, is that there is this back and forth. There is this, I can sell these cards to repackers, and I can sell these cards to here. And you know what? Now I go to a show in the Northeast, in Boston, you know, and I can sell a $100 Tatum card for $100. And the kid is happy that they've told their parent, give me the $100, I'm walking out. And that kid's going to take that $100 Tatum and put it on their shelf. Those Brady's at a show like that will sell to an end user who, is it a forever home? Who the hell knows? But maybe they put it up on their shelf. They put it up on their, you know, their bookcase, whatever it is. Say, there's my Brady card. I picked it up at a show with my dad or with my mom, and it was $50. It was my birthday present or for Christmas. So you're right to a certain extent. And I think part of it is because you're seeing your world, right? But you think about it. The flippers are buying those Brady's from you, right? And for them to make money, they have to be able to sell those to a forever home. They have to be able to get full comp for it. Otherwise, they're not buying them from you, right? So I believe they are doing that to some extent.
Maybe in this scenario, flippers, dealers, you know, the best ones do find forever homes. They do go to the show and they'll meet the family, and the family will come up and say, like, hey, my kid's a huge Brady fan. Oh, I got this inventory of Brady's, and take a look. I'm willing to do a deal. And the fact that I gave him a good deal at 70%, now they could work something out with that family where the card goes to them at, you know, a good deal. You say, hey, you know, here's, you know, the last one of these sold for 40. I could do it for 30.
Right.
And there's that ecosystem.
He has $400 worth of Brady's. I'm going to give it to you for $350. You're getting a deal because they paid you $275 for them.
Yeah.
Or $300 for them.
So
then they could take those cards and, you know, they can, you know, have them a whole day. Yeah, I mean, I honestly think
haggling with flippers is the lesson here. Give them a good deal because they're going to find forever homes.
My stuff ain't stepped on. Get me? There's a whole flow to this, man. There is, you know, you can take the poodle, right? You take the Colombian poodle, and, you know, each step, you put a little more baby powder in it. You step on it a couple of times, right? You dilute the product. Not everybody has Heisenberg poodle.
Breaking Bad's fantastic. I got to ask you one last question. So I have this card. It's the Beam Team card.
Nice! From what? From soccer? Is it the bring? Is it, you know, is it a Phil Foden beam team? Is it a Ken Griffey Jr. beam team, which I just saw? Oh, hey now. I like it.
Now, this is Jordan Beam Team.
I pulled one of those from a pack myself when I was 15 years old. Yes, 16. Either 15 or 16. I forget what month it was. 15 or 16, and I was mad that it wasn't Shaq.
Interesting.
Because Shaq was the chase, yeah.
Not Jordan?
No.
I guess Jordan's greatness wasn't solidified at that point.
And you had Stadium Series 1 and Series 2, so it was different. Shaq was in Series 2, and, you know, but the Beam Team.
Explain to me the difference between Beam Team and Beam Team Members Choice.
Members only.
Members only.
Right? So members only is sort of like a Tiffany set. Stadium Club came in a full-on box set for members only, sort of like Topps has membership clubs, Montgomery, you know, and the whole 9 yards they have now.
Like membership clubs, like you pay Topps a monthly fee, and this.
Yes, The Montgomery Club, the
I did
582s
not.
or
I
528s.
bet most people don't know that there's membership
Yep,
clubs.
100%. You get the Sapphire quicker. You get to pre-order the Sapphire stuff if you're part of the Tops Club. They give you the email, blah blah blah. I've never done
Are
it
you
because
part of it?
no, no, I'm not
Why
a
not?
Sapphire guy. Because I never bought enough modern stuff to care about doing it. I thought about doing it. It's also very limited. Like they don't sell a ton of the memberships. But anyway, Stadium Club did it. You can type in. I saw it in an auction recently. You might be able to find one, on eBay, but you can buy the 1992-93 Stadium Club members only set, and it has every card. The Michael Jordan card number 1 all the way through Shaq, plus the insert, the beam teams. It's basically a complete set. I think it came in like a black leather box. It was members only. It had the whole thing. So it was a limited version, like the Topps Tiffany set, which is just a glossy version with a more colorful back. Came in a set and with limited production numbers. So you can there you go, black leather. It looks like a shoebox, right? And there you go. Golden has it.
Set. So serial to 12,000.
I was actually bidding on this. Now I'm upset that I told people. But yeah, that's the set. They're limited, and you could open that up, and assuming it's in decent shape, you could pull out the Jordan, the beam teams, the Shaq.
It has every card.
Has every card. 421 cards.
So if I was a member of Topps back in the day, there's 12,000 members. They sent out 12,000 of these one box.
This was Upper Deck. No, this is Topps. Excuse me. Stadium Club. Yes, my bad. Stadium Club. Yeah, Topps. Yeah. So if you could buy
It's
this,
not pack pulled. Members only is not pack
the
pulled.
members only is not
But
pack pulled.
it's valued more than the normal.
Because like Tiffany, that sells for real multiples, it's a limited production number. Nobody can tell you how many of those beam teams are out there because they're not numbered. They were the first kind of inserts that were out there.
You think there's more than 12,000?
Definitely. Not in PSA 10, but
Right.
there's definitely more than 12,000 of them, across all the print runs, definitely.
The history of the hobby, man, it would be an insanely awesome segment to really dive deep into there's so many different topics. There's so many different companies. I would love to do a history of the hobby segment. I think it's needed. I think it needs to be captured. And I think it needs to be captured now because a lot of the people who have been able to span the hobby. When do you think the hobby started? Like, give me a date, the first date that comes to mind. When did this start?
I mean, it depends what you mean by the hobby starting. I would probably say that kids collected cards in the 1920s, but for different reasons.
They're dead. But like I'm talking about 70s.
So it depends what you mean by collecting. Like they collected Youngling's ice cream cards. They collected ice cream cards to get like a gallon of ice cream for free. Like they put the set together. People collected the Gaudy set. Like people collected that set because they were trying to build the whole set. That was the first set of bubblegum cards, and they realized card number 106 was missing from it, so they wrote letters in to get this. So people were collecting.
Fine, you're crushing my
But
argument.
The hobby, you probably the 70s as a hobby, as like, oh wow, these things have collectability and value. 70s
And
80s,
how they were released and how they were delivered, and
Yeah.
these were hobby only. These were
right,
sold
factory sets that came in. Yes,
So
70s.
why I said they're dead was only for a short period of time can you still get interviews of people who have been in the hobby from that point to now. If you fast forward 15, 20 years, you might not be able to get good interviews of people who collected in the 70s, actually. That's the crazy thing.
I think you're right. I mean, maybe 1981 was the first year that a sport had multiple sets. Think about this, okay? Because you talk about Hall of Famers and the whole 9 yards. Name for me the last, it's going to be baseball, let's go, the last baseball Hall of Famer that has one rookie card.
What's his name? Mariano Rivera.
Ricky Henderson, 1980 tops. Because in 81, Fleer and Donruss came out. So people who started in 81, Tim Raines, I think, is a Hall of Famer from that year. And then 82, Cal Ripken, that year, they had multiple rookie cards. So, I mean, you want to talk about like the proliferation of cards and how cards came out. That's
Koufax, one rookie card.
Koufax was the 50s,
One
way
rookie
before.
card?
One rookie card.
Mickey Mantle, two rookie cards.
Mickey Mantle, one rookie card, 51 Bowman, and 52 tops is not a rookie card. Even though we all love it and it's an iconic card, it is not a rookie.
Jordan, one rookie card.
again, basketball, not baseball. And you have that 84 star, which I would consider an XRC. But, you could say Fleer. But I'm talking baseball. But
History
yeah,
of the hobby. Guys, tell us in the comments. I mean, how would you even go about putting something like that together? We keep hearing the hobby needs more
just
education.
lock Dr. James Beckett in a room and let him talk.
We'd like to get different opinions. I think he'd obviously be on the roster, and we'd love to hear what he has to say. But he does a podcast. I mean, I think you guys could go and listen to it, and I think he has P. Ryan on it oftentimes, and he does it like he kind of cuts it into segments. So he does produce content. All right, those are my topics. Any thoughts? Any takes? Any
I
opinions?
think I gave some thoughts. I think we're doing good, man. I mean, Luca Nation has an hour to listen to this fun stuff. Love you guys. And guys, check out the collector series with DPZ. Great stuff coming out. Some really cool episodes coming, going forward. And if you haven't listened, my episode yesterday, Black Jada Wolf on Cage, our 7th one. She thinks the hobby's turning, man. She's some real positive stuff from the shows. Enjoying going to shows. Really liked Culture Collision. Give Ralph a little credit for putting the show on and the whole deal. A couple people said it was a really well run show.
She thinks the hobby's turning.
Yeah, that the retail buyers for the shows so far in January are there where they weren't there the last couple of months of shows. Whether it's because of people have got their money right after holiday spending or whatever the money might be. I raised, is it crypto? She kind of laughed at that.
I think it's the seasonality. I think we've seen it the last 3 years. I mean, if you think about what happens September, October, November, December, kids go back to school shopping, supplies, clothes, new shoes, expensive. I don't even have kids. I remember how expensive that was. Once that's over, you have Thanksgiving, so you begin to travel and prepare for family dinners. Holidays, Hanukkah, Christmas. That's a lot of spending. It's a lot of expenses. And especially as you're winding down and heading into the later part of the year, you have sports starting back up. It's not a time where people could spend a lot of money. And then as soon as the calendar year turns, 3 years in a row, Cage, I don't think it's a sustained rally. I think we have in price thin all the economic stuff that will be coming.
Okay.
Well, we'll see.
No, I mean, I think you're right. And we've talked about that. January, February, it's usually been a better time, a kind of a turnaround. But, we'll see. Good stuff. Thanks for the nation.
Now, remember how we used to talk about the seasonality of buying into baseball, buying into all that stuff? Like buying baseball, 4 months before spring training and selling. I think the seasonality of what we do now here in cards is, buy up the supply influx the last 4 months and then sell it January and February.